Hello everyone. This video is on the why behind introducing a second language. I'm starting a new series on this and I'm kind of really excited about it. This probably competes with my passion for nutrition. I really, I don't know which one. Sometimes like nutrition wins out more, but this one wins out during other times. I would probably say in the long run, linguistics and languages and um, just the whole concept wins, I think, overall. Mainly because it's what I studied in college, it's what I spent 2 years doing full on research in it. I was a research assistant one of those years, and then the first year I did just independent research on bilingual brain developments and how that compares with monolingual brain development, specifically in children. I did 2 symposiums, so that was kind of fun and really eye-opening, and it really got me going into my passion for languages. I majored in linguistics. I've taught ESL so many times. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's just teaching English as a second language to those who don't know English. I've also taught Arabic very briefly. Sorry, the camera just shook. I taught Arabic very briefly with my Arabic teacher in college. It was for a summer program. So, and I'm working with an adult right now, and teaching her English a couple times a week, and it's just the field that I can't seem to get away from. It keeps going back in my life. It has taught me so much, and I am not done learning at all. I think this area I will probably continue to learn about forever. It's not something you can kind of close a chapter on because the research is always continuing in this area, and the world is changing so much language wise that it's just going to be interesting to see what happens in the next generation. Now this video I'm kind of focusing on children more than I am focusing on adults, but I think that you can still apply some of this with adults too. But basically, the why behind thinking about or considering giving your child a second language, and or even just like introducing it, continuing with it if you're like wondering, should I really keep doing this kind of thing? And this really comes from me seeing parents when I was teaching in schools, seeing parents hesitate, even ones that were fluent in another language, right? So I met a Filipino lady, I think a long time ago, like 3 years ago, I think now it's been, and she was telling me like, I I I just stopped teaching them my language. She just found it hard, to keep talking to them in her native language because she was married to someone who didn't speak her language. He was an American. He spoke English. Sorry, Arabic. He spoke English. Um, and she started with her children. I think that's what she had told me, but she said that she just couldn't keep going. And she's like, I ended up just lazing out about it. Those were like kind of her words. And we talked a little bit about it, and I think that's a common thing amongst parents. And the reason behind it is that it is difficult to switch between this language and that language all day long. Okay. So you have to have a system for that. But this will be saved for my next video where I talk about the how. But I get it. For parents, it can be really difficult to be like, well, I want them exposed to this. And even for parents who, like, I've known Arab parents who both parents speak Arabic and they try to teach their kids Arabic, and their kids either don't want to learn it or they're around their school friends so much that they're just like, it's not worth it. Like, the parents end up kind of giving up. And I do think the parents do have that, like, I think if the parents aren't into it, most likely you're not going to get them to learn, You're not going to get your kids to learn if you're just not into it, if you don't want to do it. But I just want to share a few reasons why it could be important to consider, giving them a second language. First one is brain development, right? So, I recently read an article, an updated article, I think it was published in 2019, on the gray matter area in the brain. and how children in bilingual homes or ones who just have exposure to a second language have an increase in that gray matter. And that gray matter, I think it's around the hippocampus of the brain, and it's around the sensory area. I don't even know what other word to use. As in your senses, your sight, your hearing, all that, but also your impulse control. So, like decision making, self control, that sort of thing. And with bilingual children, they found a slight increase in it. This might not mean anything to you because you're like, so what? I don't care. But I do think it's an interesting thing. Those kinds of tests are always inconclusive, or they're so broad between the age range of children that you really can't make a definite conclusion. But I did find that research article really interesting. That and you hear about these things too, where using your left side of the brain versus your right side of the brain, like the whole concept of it. Um, I find that really interesting. I do think, from personally looking into it, there seems to be an easier time multitasking with children who are in bilingual homes. Like they do seem to be able to kind of switch between one or two things a lot quicker. Again, this doesn't mean that much on a practical basis. And it's not to say one's better than the other. Like you don't want to make that assumption. Um, People are unique. All of us learn differently, and we're all unique. But I thought that was kind of interesting to at least share and for you to look into and see if that's worth it for you. And then another reason I think is preservation of your heritage and culture. Um, that one is if you want your children to appreciate the culture that they come from, right? Or to one day, as functioning adults, not be ashamed of it, not be embarrassed of it, talk about it freely, or just even have the desire to go back to their country and see it and that kind of thing. Language is one of the best ways to do that. Okay. Um, it's easier. It's easier than just a lot of other things because it's practiced daily, because you can introduce them to your foods, dressing, whatever, but you're not going to be practically doing that every single day. Like, let's be real, we live in America, okay? We're all cooking pretty much the same things all around our households, right? Like very similar kinds of food. I'm not making Arab foods every day. Heck, I don't even make it like once a month, I don't think. And if I do, it's usually the same thing, like hummus, falafel, whatever, right? Like it's not anything that's so, and like it's not going to make that much of an impact. Language will though. Language is a really big part of a culture. Another thing is preservation of the language. So languages die out. That has happened throughout history so many times, and some languages don't necessarily die out, but they call it evolve. They say like it moves on to a different kind of a language. So like it might still have the same basic components, but it's not the same language anymore. Um, and I do get concerned with that, especially with my dialect, because I don't only speak Arabic, I also speak a specific dialect as well. So that specific dialect, like I don't know how it's going to keep carrying on with all these wars that are happening in the Middle East, or you're coming out of a war and lots of people have died. I don't know if that will carry out in the future generations. Like I'm going to be realistic about it and truthful. Like I don't know if our dialect that we speak now is going to be carried into the next generation, but I can choose to carry that with my child, right? If my child is fluent in it, she will most likely be carrying it right into the next generation, because that's kind of what it's kind of how it works. So I feel like those are three reasons. I will say I feel like I've gone from like the weakest reason to the strongest reason when it comes to hierarchy in this, because I want you leaving with the strongest reason. My reasoning for it is preserving my language, right? I want to preserve my language. um, and I do, again, I've done so much reading on like language is dying out. It is so incredibly common. And honestly, like right now, what's the universal language? English. English is the universal language. Everyone in all their countries grow up with English, right? So I could definitely see a lot of languages in the future dying out. And unfortunately, when that happens, the culture dies out too. Like that's kind of what follows. And that's not blaming anyone for it. That has happened throughout history. It's just a common thing that happens. But yeah, I hope this kind of just gets you questioning. If you have any um, comments that you want to make, feel free to write it below. Or if you have any specific questions, um, and if you want research material and things like that, I am not done learning in this area at all. I don't think I will ever be done learning in this area. So yeah, but it's really cool to be able to do this. And next time I'll be talking more practical tips on how to do it. All right, everyone. Bye.